My lords, the virtual proceedings on the debate in the name of the Most Reverend Primate, the Archbishop of York, will now commence. This is a time-limited debate. I will first call the Most Reverend Primate, the Archbishop of York, in the usual way. The question will then be put. Then I will call each speaker on the list in the usual way. Each speaker's microphone will be unmuted prior to speaking and return to mute once their speech has finished. Motion to the debate, income, equality and sustainability, the Archbishop of York.
My lords, I am grateful to the government chief whip and the usual channels for granting me this opportunity to move a motion that is very dear to my heart. Thank you. I commend Her Majesty's government for its rapid action in the current crisis and through unprecedented public spending working to protect jobs and avert millions of redundancies. It is in light of this recent health emergency that I'm beseeching your lordship's house to take note of the case for increasing income equality and sustainability. My lords, last Thursday, Baroness Bennett of Manor Castle opened a question for short debate, COVID-19, people living in poverty. I believe that what we are doing today has the potential to make a lasting difference. As Amelia Earhart, the first woman to fly across the Atlantic, said, the most difficult thing is the decision to act. The rest is merely tenacity. As long ago as 20th of April 1909, Winston Churchill, president of the Board of Trade, gave a speech in the other place and said, it is a serious national evil that any class of His Majesty's subjects should receive less than a living wage in return for their utmost exertions. Though much has since changed, that principle remains as strong as ever in our national life. 10 years later, in 1919, after a world war and a global flu pandemic, the International Labour Organization Constitution affirmed, peace and harmony in the world requires an adequate living wage. The economic argument that workers should be paid a fair and living wage was not new even then. In 1776, Adam Smith, said to be the father of modern market economics, wrote this: servants, laborers, and workmen of different kinds make up the far greater part of every great political society. But what improves the circumstances of the greater part can never be regarded as an inconvenience to the whole. No society can surely be flourishing and happy of which the far greater part of the members are poor and miserable. Many jobs fall far short of this ideal for millions of workers across the United Kingdom. The truth we now see is that the vast majority of frontline key workers are hard-pressed on poverty wages. Okay, Pickett and Richard Wilkinson's groundbreaking book, The Spirit Level, showed that a wide range of social problems are more common in societies with larger income differences between the rich and the poor. The solution must be to narrow the gap between wages and basic living costs. The creation of an Economic Equality and Sustainability Commission would help to facilitate the creation of more income equality and a fairer society that will solve many of the pressing social problems, such as the supply of genuinely affordable homes and social care provision. David Cameron, when Prime Minister, acknowledged, and I quote, we all know in our heart that as long as there is deep poverty, living systematically side by side With greater riches, we all remain the poorer for it. When I was Bishop of Stepney, I soon became aware that low-paid workers there were having to work 2 or 3 minimum wage jobs, but still struggle to make ends meet. At that time, the living wage campaign started in Bethnal Green in 1997, called on businesses to recognize the important role of their invisible workers and pay them a real living wage. A recent Living Wage Foundation publication of 30320 quotes 2 case studies of year 6 pupils. 1. Mom works extremely long hours to make ends meet, often do not see parents for long periods. Choice between paying bills and paying for food. 2. Mom works as a care worker and is paid £8.21 an hour. Have to do the dishes and keep things tidy at home. I have my chores to do. Mom is not proposed to work weekends, but works Sunday and Saturdays. Comes home, has dinner, watches TV, and goes to sleep. I am lonely. A living wage will make a real difference to my family. I'm very proud to support the proposal from the Living Wage Commission, which I chaired, for the real living wage, calculated according to the cost of living, providing an hourly rate of pay independently calculated each year. Our rates for 2019-20 are £9.30 across the UK and £10.75 in London. This living wage applies to all directly employed staff over the age of 18, regardless of the number of hours they work. And we need to distinguish between Her Majesty's government's national living wage, a higher minimum wage rate for over 25s, and what I refer to as the real living wage, through which families don't go short. If we support the principle that those who are least well off should get the most help, it is shocking that children living in poverty have not been the #1 priority in this unprecedented package of support announced by the Chancellor. The coronavirus national emergency is already exposing the inadequacy of the safety net provided by our social security system, as more people who have not previously relied on benefits get the experience of how mean it really is. Hopefully, this will lead to a more generous and compassionate system. So why not increase the national living wage to £10 per hour for everyone now? The time has come for us all to stop talking about welfare benefits and talking instead about social insurance, a term which underlines both that our focus should be on need and that we are all in this together. The biblical vision is not of a world in which individualism and consumerism are the purposes for which we are made, but one in which we are created for fellowship and mutual responsibility. It is of a world in which the principal aim of policy is to enhance the well-being, that is, the personal and communal flourishing of all in society. The challenge is to articulate a vision of what that eudaimonia, not a word much used in Yorkshire or in your lordship's house, but a useful Greek word to describe the well-being and flourishing of a community and all those who live within it. Dame Julia Unwin, in her chapter in the book I edited on Rock or Sand, from Foundations for Britain's Future, analyzed the changing face of poverty in this country, including the rising gap between the rich and the poor. She also highlighted the new and deeply worrying fact that for the first time, the historic link between poverty and unemployment has now been broken. She writes, the notion that hard work will enable people to leave poverty and build a life of self-reliance has been broken. Instead, the prospects of work provide intermittent activity, limited reward, and no security. After the current crisis, the major concern of our age is sustainability. It is becoming ever clearer that income equality is a precondition for moving to environmental sustainability. It now seems inevitable that people all over the world will suffer endless environmental crises, hazards, leading to displacement and food shortages, as well as a need for better systems for emergency aid. Much will depend on a strong ethos of mutual support between neighbors as well as between countries. That is fostered by greater equality, as Richard Wilkinson and Kate Pickett have actually shown in both the spirit level and more recently in the inner level. Greater equality is the basis for stronger community life, and indeed a greater capacity to be united in a response to the climate emergency. It is therefore crucially important to reduce income difference both before and after tax. We need to make income tax highly progressive again and have higher taxes. To reduce inequalities before tax, all employers should at minimum pay the real living wage. And in English cities where labor-controlled and local governments have set up fairness commissions, they have almost always become living wage employers. And they have successfully communicated their real living wage commitment to everyone they do business with, and have encouraged them to consider implementing the real living wage for the real cost of living. My lords, the current crisis has made all of us aware of the need to recognize the value of our key workers. Please listen to these words of Linda, a carer. Since I started being paid the living wage, I haven't had to worry about if I can pay the bills. And more importantly than that, I get to spend time every day with my mom and daughter. And I'm not falling asleep on the sofa as soon as I get home. I eat better, I sleep better, and I'm much less stressed. From the Living Wage Foundation pages. The Scottish Government and Wirral recently took hold steps to support care workers, committing to uplift them to the real living wage, including ancillary workers such as cleaners and catering staff. Some of the local employers have been paying their workers a real living wage since long before the crisis, recognizing that higher pay doesn't only benefit workers, but also businesses with lower staff turnover and absenteeism. Care work is a huge industry with around 1 million workers supporting some of the most vulnerable people in society, often for incredibly low pay. For too long, its importance has been undervalued and underfunded. But now there is a real opportunity to create lasting change in the sector. As we emerge from this crisis, we must look again at how we value this work and how we pay for it. It's time to rethink how government, public bodies, and businesses work together in order to bounce back better and to ensure that there is adequate funding so that all care worker is rewarded with at least a real living wage and then deliver fair pay rises for our key workers and rewards for workers across the economy that restore what they've lost through 10 years of cuts and slow growth. Let us make the paying of the real living wage the litmus test for a fair recovery, and let us help our country become a place where the well springs of solidarity of a new and divided society can begin to spring up and then go beyond the real living wage. Income inequality is the great giant of our time, which we must slay. The real living wage is a crucial tool in our armory, but the living wage is a first and vital step in challenging inequality. Let me end by sharing with you the 4 guiding principles which have impelled me to work tirelessly to promote the real living wage. First, that all human beings are of equal worth in the sight of God. There is no one and no group of whom we can say they are less important or they don't matter. The needs of the other person are always as important as my own. Second, a commitment to offer everyone the opportunity to flourish. A society is only well ordered insofar as it offers ways of flourishing to all its members. Third, a recognition of our human interrelatedness and interdependence. As the African proverb says, when a tiny toe is hurting, the whole body stoops down to attend to that toe. The reality is we are all inextricably bound up with each other's welfare. We rely on each other. If one suffers, soon or later, we all will suffer. And COVID-19 and the lockdown have actually vividly demonstrated this for all of us. Fourth, it is a need to accept our duty of responsibility by using our God-given potential, both for ourselves and serve others. My lords, I beg to move that this
The question is that this motion be agreed